Okay, thank you everybody for being here. Alex Torpey, your village president. I'm going to introduce the rest of the panelists up here in a second, and we're going to try and jump right into things. Just a couple sort of little housekeeping things first. First is I just want to make sure to note that this meeting was noticed as a public meeting just because a majority of the governing body is here, but there is not any action to be taken tonight. This is a meeting for the sake of a discussion and also a question and answer period at the end of the presentations for anybody that is here. So what we're going to do is try and get through some of the presentation items. There are agendas that are available as well as some other documentation with some of the slides that we're going to be showing. This is being streamed and recorded. That will be available on our website. As far as the meeting is concerned, what we'd love to be able to do is run through some of the presentation items kind of quickly, and really what everybody here wants to do, the real main part of this meeting is to get to the question and answer part so we can make sure that everybody who's here, anybody who has a question, we can address all of those. So if you wouldn't mind, unless it's sort of a clarification or you can't hear someone, we're saving up the questions for the end, and we will definitely be able to get to everybody that's here tonight. We'll make sure to answer all of your questions. And before we get started, let me just introduce who's up here right now, a little bit more about everything. So we've got our attorney, village counsel Steve Rother, and his associate John Pisconi, Barry Lewis, our village administrator, Tom Valenza, who's a water consultant for the village, Walter Clark, one of our trustees, and Howard Levison, one of our trustees. I also want to make sure to note that Sheena Collum, Steve Schnall, Mark Rosner, and Deborah Davis-Ford, the other members of the board, if you guys want to wave to everybody, they are here also in attendance. And so one thing I do want to just say before we get started is this meeting tonight, some of the options that are being presented and the steps forward for us that we're going to be really discussing tonight is the culmination of really a tremendous amount of work by a lot of people, not only village staff, but many residents as well, who have been incredibly vigilant with making sure that they're keeping track of what's going on with the water and at various points in time bringing issues up to our attention. But I do want to make sure to especially thank Trustee Howard Levison and our attorney and his firm for the amount of work, the enormous amount of work, as well as everybody else that's up here and the rest of the board as well. They have put an incredible amount of time into making sure that we understand exactly where we are with this. They have put an incredible amount of time in trying to find ways to communicate as much as possible about what's going on, and we'll discuss in a little while why at some points that's been a little bit more difficult just because of the legal nature of some of the discussions, but really want to make sure to thank all of the staff and again all the residents as well who have helped us out to a very significant degree at various points. This is obviously an incredibly important issue for all of us and something that I think represents a good example of what happens when people actually do. It's the town and the residents actually working together on the same team here to not only hold East Orange Water accountable, but more importantly, and more of the focus for what tonight is really about, is where are we in this process? What are the options that we have? What are the pros and cons of the different options that we do have? What the recommendation of the board is likely to be, and then making sure that we can discuss those and make sure everybody is on the same page about where we're going and how we ensure the village safe, affordable, clean drinking water into the future. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to the village administrator, Barry Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. What I'd like to do, at least at this point in the program, is I'm going to just briefly recap. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail because I think most everybody has it, but for anyone who may be new to the community, who may be watching on TV, just want a brief recap of our current relationship with the East Orange Water Commission. South Orange used to own and operate and run our own water system with a number of producing wells by DPW and a couple other locations. At some point, those became contaminated, and the village had to close enough of the wells that we were no longer in a position to supply sufficient water to our residents. The village then entered into a contract with the East Orange Water Commission, which was in 1996, that essentially provides for East Orange to provide all the water that we need and also to operate and maintain the water system, which includes the day-to-day maintenance, is supposed to include the long-term maintenance, infrastructure improvements, capital needs, as well as the billing, collecting the billing, and essentially run the entire system. The village operated under that contract for a period of time, to my knowledge, without significant incident, but then recently, what initially started as concerns about some of the financial components, their performance of the operating function of it, billing, neglect of capital needs, things of that nature, began litigation. And in the course of that, then water quality issues arose, and those are certainly the ones I think most people are most familiar with and have gotten most of the headlines. But so we are and continue to be in litigation with the East Orange Water Commission. As that process has unfolded, there were, we thought, opportunities where there might be an opportunity to terminate the contract based on certain issues, based on their resolution of those issues with the Department of Environmental Protection. Our ability to early terminate was somewhat hampered, and I'll let the attorneys explain that to the extent they need to later in more detail. But at the end of the day, our contract with East Orange Water comes to an end at the end of 2016. So we're a little over 2 years out. Recognizing that providing a community water system is not something you can put together overnight, the village, including council who are up here, our consultant, myself, village president, trustees, started the process of evaluating what are our options at the end of that contract. In part, we had started that evaluation in case we were able to terminate early, but as we approach that December 31, 2016, and we know we're going to have an option to do it and are going to need to evaluate those options and be in a position to put something in place to continue the uninterrupted water supply. So that is the purpose of tonight's meeting, and that's why it was specifically entitled Community Meeting on Alternative Water Supply. We have had a number of other meetings, posted a lot of information, and certainly if there's a demand, we can have another meeting on water quality issues, but we do want the focus of tonight's meeting to be, and the goals then of our meeting for tonight. Initially, Mr. Valenza, who was introduced, who is a very experienced water, he's got a number of certifications from the state of New Jersey. He serves as our consultant. He's going to give a general background of our water system, its condition, where different locations that it connects to other systems, because necessarily if you get water from somebody else, you can only do it if you have pipes that connect. After Mr. Valenza goes through that description of our current water system, we will briefly go through what were identified as 3 options for alternative water sources, one of which is not really an alternative, but and those are listed on the agenda. And in that presentation, our council will go through each of the 3 options and explain, hopefully in relatively layman's terms, all the different legal hurdles and steps and procedures and time frames that we would have to comply with to pursue one of those options. And then we'll also talk about what are the pros and cons of those different options as we've evaluated them. Finally, at the conclusion of that sort of summary and discussion of each of the 3 options, we're going to turn the microphones over to our trustees, Howard Levison and Walter Clark. Howard has been on this whole water issue probably since its inception 6, 7, 8 years ago, and Walter has been equally vigilant ever since coming on the board last year. So the 2 of them will then discuss really from a policy perception and standpoint what the ultimate recommendation and the recommended course of action is. And then when we follow that, one of the options, and one of the options, it's on the agenda, so I'm not really letting the cat out of the bag too much, New Jersey American Water, who's a potential partner and is a potential partner in one of the options. They have representatives here who are here to in some sense, introduce their company and talk about what they might be able to provide to the village if we pursue the option that would involve their company. And then finally, as the village president alluded to, we want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers. Again, hopefully encourage people to limit the questions to the subject of tonight's meeting, which is where we're going from here. I think we're all in agreement. We don't like East Orange Water. There's been a ton of problems, so we don't want to just get caught up in that. And also be respectful if you have a lot of questions, if you can ask a few and make sure everybody else gets a chance. We'd appreciate that as well. So that's the end of this introduction.
Okay. Great. So I think what we're going to do next is Mr. Valenza is going to give a little bit of an overview and description of our water system.
Okay. Hi, everyone. The South Orange water system conveys water to approximately 16,000 residents and 10,000 Seton Hall University students, faculty, and staff through 4,621 residential and business service connections. Water system is comprised of 3 areas or zones, each with its own water storage reservoir. These storage reservoirs maintain supply of water and pressure to the consumer households. And up on the map, you can see the 3 reservoirs. The yellow is the separates the mountain and the low reservoir. The largest reservoir, or main reservoir, located at 527 South Orange Avenue West, is a concrete in-ground structure with a storage capacity of 2 million gallons. Water from this reservoir supplies the low-pressure zone through gravity. The low-pressure zone, which is the large area in white on the right, is the largest and most populated pressure zone. Louder?
Move the mic a little closer. Just slide that to the side.
Is that better? Okay. Water is pumped from this reservoir to the Crest Drive storage tank, which in turn supplies the high and mountain pressure zones. At the South Orange Avenue Reservoir, there are 2 pumps for redundancy, each of which is capable of delivering adequate water to the high and mountain pressure zones and an emergency backup power generation in the event of a power failure. Service will not be interrupted. The high pressure zone, that's the area in yellow, contains a steel storage tank which is located on Crest Drive and has a capacity of 1.5 million gallons.
Stand by.
This tank supplies water and pressure to the high pressure zone through gravity. Water is pumped from this tank to the mountain pressure zone, which is on your left, and there's a storage tank up there located on Longview Road. There are also 2 pumps for redundancy, each of which is capable of delivering adequate water to the mountain pressure zone and emergency backup power generation in the event of a power failure. Service will not be interrupted. The mountain pressure zone is a steel storage tank with a capacity of 200,000 gallons and supplies water and pressure to this mountain pressure zone through gravity. South Orange water system has a combined total storage capacity of 3.7 million gallons. South Orange Village currently utilizes an average of approximately 2.8 million gallons of water each day for domestic consumption, fire protection. The system contains 600 fire hydrants, ground irrigation, and other water supply needs. In the summer months, this daily consumption number has peaked at 3.3 million gallons per day. So it's necessary to continuously replenish the storage facilities as water is consumed. So now you're all wondering, where does this water come from? Water is supplied through a permanent 4 million gallon per day interconnection with the City of East Orange pumping station located in Millburn and connects directly to the South Orange Avenue 2 million gallon main reservoir. East Orange supplies 90% of the water utilized by the village. The remaining 10% is supplied by the village's own well located in Grove Park and the well treatment facility for volatile organic contaminant removal, which is located at the entrance of the Public Works Department off of Walton Avenue. There are 2 additional emergency interconnections, one with Newark Water located at the intersection of South Orange Avenue and Holland Road, the other with New Jersey American Water Company located in Farrell Field near the intersection of Walton and Audley Streets. Each is capable of delivering 1 million gallons of water per day to the village in an emergency. At present, there are 3 interconnections by which water can be delivered to the village, with only one, the East Orange interconnection, having the capacity to deliver the amount of water necessary to meet the village's needs.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Rother, Mr. Visconti. They're going to give us a brief rundown here of the three main different options that we've considered and that we face going forward.
The first of these options is, if you want to call it an option, is to remain with East Orange Water Commission. And the action that's necessary to be taken there is very limited. All we would have to do if we want to stay with East Orange Water Commission is to negotiate a new agreement which would take effect on January the 1st, 2017, and to secure New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection approval of that agreement. Barry, you want to talk about the benefits and burdens there?
Sure. So, again, independent of just whether conceptually we'd entertain continuing our relationship with East Orange Water, given the history of it, the one benefit is that if the system's already in place, the water's already flowing, all the pipes are in place, so things would just continue. The downside is knowing what we know about their past billing practices, some of the information we have about their financial status, the obligations that they owe. We've been fortunate in that the 20-year contract that we had, any increases in rates were limited and controlled. Negotiating brand new contract, we fully expect that the rates would be significantly higher than they are now, which is obviously a downside. In addition, there's significant concerns about East Orange's water, ability to continue to deliver the appropriate quantity of safe drinkable water. In recent years, they have been significantly supplementing the supply by purchasing water from Newark, which is itself not a fully settled relationship. And then finally, just in a nutshell, and we are assuming that there isn't a lot of justification made as to where we sit on this particular course of action. It would just continue us in a relationship with a commission that has demonstrated a long failure of not only financial mismanagement, operational mismanagement, including indictments of officials, manipulations, who have only been sort of compelled to comply and continue to deliver safe drinkable water to the village by the diligence of the Board of Trustees, the village president, village council, with the backing of DEP. So in short, not much benefit and a lot of burden.
Option B is an option to sell the system. This is a very highly regulated by statute process, which can take the better part of 3 years. It includes an evaluation of the system, and it culminates in a public referendum where you, the voters, would get to decide at the end of that lengthy process whether or not you indeed wanted to sell the system or not. Barry, the benefits and burdens?
So the benefits to selling the system is, if we were to sell it, it would have to be to a BPU-regulated company that would buy the system. They would operate the system. It would become essentially completely privatized. They would bill you. You'd all become their customers. One benefit of that is that their rates are regulated by the BPU, so you have the state sort of watchdog, which we don't necessarily have at East Orange Water, overseeing their and they make them come up with audited statements and financial statements and review expenses and review and have to approve the rates. So there is a measure of control and state oversight of the rates as a benefit. Capital investment in our system that would have to be done, that company, whomever it would be, would have the ability to spread that over their entire ratepayer base as part of a larger system, so there's some benefits there. The burdens are, it is a lengthy process, as Mr. Rother alluded to. It's practically 3 years. It requires a referendum, and given that we are there's A, that length of process, and B, the uncertainty if it went to referendum and it was not approved, then it couldn't happen. It put us in a position where we couldn't kind of put all our eggs in that basket and go down that path, because if it didn't get approved and all of a sudden it's December of 2016, then we're pretty much have no options other than to continue with East Orange Water, which was certainly an option that we did not want to find ourselves in that position. And then finally, one of the other additional things is if you do sell the system, then the village also becomes a customer of that company. And in addition to then paying for all our own water, most of the companies that we've talked to have a significant charge for providing fire hydrants, which would then be borne by the taxpayers as part of our operating expenses. And then finally, you would lose all control because essentially it would be completely out of our hands, and it would be between really just the BPU oversight. So those are the burdens of selling the system.
And finally, option C is to seek out and find a company that can provide what's called a commodity purchase contract. That's essentially where we contract with another entity to strictly provide water into the South Orange system. As you heard Mr. Valenza say before, there are currently only 3 viable interconnections into South Orange. And in order to service the entire township, you have to go through the main reservoir. The main reservoir feeds the low service area, but it also feeds the other storage tanks that service the high service area and the mountain service area. So in order to contract with anyone who's not East Orange, we have to find someone who we can enter into a contract for them to provide water and for them to interconnect with a main that goes directly to our reservoir. In addition to the commodity service contract, we'd also need to do a separate operations and maintenance and billing contract. This is essentially so we don't have to reinstate the South Orange Water Department with full-on staff who is driving around checking the meters in residential connections, but also exercising valves and just has the necessary expertise to service and maintain a system. Once we find companies to handle those 2 functions, we'd have to get Department of Environmental Protection approval for both of the contracts, acknowledging that we've contracted for enough water to service all of South Orange, and that the companies we're using have the requisite knowledge necessary. And then we'd have to construct the interconnection so that whomever is providing the water can get it all to that reservoir so that it can then service all of South Orange. Barry, benefits?
Yep. So one of the benefits of pursuing this option is obviously we retain control. We currently own our system. We do own the pipes in the street. We retain control of the system. The potential suppliers that would come in would bear the cost to make sure that they can bring the water to the points in our system that they need to be brought to ensure the delivery of the adequate supply of water. We also then retain the option B to sell the system. If we exercise option B now, and again, given the time constraints, that would be very risky, we would also then be done and out of the business. So this gives us the opportunity to find an immediate solution, evaluate that solution, see how that works out, and still retaining the option to then later sell the system on a much more normal pace and schedule that we don't feel like we have the gun to our head with the East Orange water deadline looming. It also, as would option B, ensures that we have access to a reliable, safe, adequate supply of water. We're not at the mercy of East Orange water test results, manipulation, running out of water, et cetera. It also gives us protection in that we would be bulk purchasing the water at a much lower rate than the normal consumer rate from these companies. You lock into a certain quantity that you're going to buy, and part of that, and this is all regulated under the BPU rates, we're able to buy it at a lower rate. Our current projections, we believe that given the current bulk rates, plus none of this is guaranteed, but that we will be in a position to continue operations without the tremendous spike in rates that would be fully expected if we continue with East Orange water. And then the burdens of this is there is some procedural hoops we have to jump through. We do have to go out to bid for a company to maintain the system, do the billing, which may or may not be the same company that supplies the water. It may be. There are some procedural hoops and some uncertainty until we get those bids, but we are comfortable and confident that we can put together the necessary documents and get that process in place that we'll be able to fully evaluate and know where we stand at that time. So those are essentially the 3 options, the pros and the cons. And that now we're up to number 4 on the agenda.
Yeah, so I think at this time, trustees Levison and trustee Clark, who are the 2 trustees who have been, everybody's obviously been involved in all aspects of this. They've been really taking the lead here, so they're going to talk a little bit about what the recommended plan is and moving forward.
Yeah, you did read well, because if you can read number 5, that's the recommended plan. Trustee Levison and I are going to introduce to the Board of Trustees. Did I just check out there, Steve? Yep, okay. Trustee Levison and I are going to suggest to the Board of Trustees at the next trustee meeting on the 22nd that we go with the combination of the O&M and the bulk purchase contract. For us, it's the most prudent way to go because, number one, it achieves the goal of assuring that we have a safe water supply by the deadline of the 2016 contract's expiration. And the second key feature is that it still provides us some flexibility for the future. If at some point selling the system becomes an attractive financial option, we can do that. That's the way we want to go, and that's what we'll recommend to the board. And since they're here tonight, I guess it won't be a big surprise to them either.
Well, there are some caveats that go along with that pursuit. One of the things that we have to make sure that whenever the option comes up with the expiration of our East Orange water contract, we must have a supply of water available. And that's the reason that we're making the recommendation of going with the commodity price contract immediately, moving forward with that, so that we do have the ability, and we will in parallel, analyze and review the other alternatives, including the sale of the system, as well as preparing an RFP for a third party to do what we call O&M, operations and maintenance of the system. But one of the pieces that we have to go through is to be able to obtain an evaluation or valuation of our system. How much is it worth? And to understand if we are selling it, it's a good deal for the village.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have a brief presentation with 2 folks from New Jersey American Water, Nicholas DeVekis, the Manager of Business Development, and Tom Schroba, the Senior Director for North Operations, are going to talk a little bit about water quality, the interconnection, the type of interconnection that would need to be constructed, and the general operations.
And as these gentlemen are coming up to the stage, just by way of background, and referring to Mr. Valenza's brief description of the system, and it should be self-evident that we can only talk to a company that has their own water system in close enough geographic proximity that it economically makes sense for them to be able to connect and deliver the water. So while there's water companies all over the state, if they're 30 miles away, it's not really an option. So when we evaluated, and certainly in speaking with Mr. Valenza and looking around, the most logical potential partner is New Jersey American Water. I'm not going to get into, and they will describe to you their company, where they're located, but as you will hear, they are the ones that seem to be the only one really with the opportunity at a cost-effective rate to make that connection and deliver the water. So wanted to just make sure that this isn't a foregone conclusion. We're early in the process with them in having discussions about, again, it's not a particular, the bulk commodity rate, it's not a negotiation that's set by the state. So this isn't a question of making any kind of a deal. This is all governed by the state, but that's the reason that we have been meeting with them and why we've invited them here tonight to explain a little bit about their company, their philosophy, how they operate, where they're located, how they believe they can bring the water to South Orange. So again, Mr. DeVekis and Mr. Schroba.
Thank you very much for the introduction there. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight to present. Is that good? Can we hear? Good? Okay. I'm Nick DeVekis, Manager of Business Development for New Jersey American. I've been with the company for about 8 years now. To my left, your right, is Tom Schroba, Senior Director of Operations for our Northern Service Territory. We also have several folks in the audience that I want to make sure I introduce here. We have Anthony Matarazzo as our Senior Director of Water Quality and Environmental Management, over 25 years of experience in water utilities. Behind him, Dana Wright, Senior Planning Engineer from New Jersey American, 28 years doing water service. Behind him, Bill Osterly is Production Manager at our Canoe Brook Water Treatment Plant, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this presentation. Over here, we have Scott Brzezinski, who is a water quality supervisor, also at the Canoe Brook Treatment Plant. And to his left, your right, is Frank Marasha, who is the production manager at the plant as well. A lot of experience, a lot of knowledge here in this room, and we certainly will make them available for questions. And then afterwards as well, if anybody wants to touch base with any of them one-on-one, they'll be available to share their expertise with you. Okay, so with that, I'll just get started here. Second slide. We are American Water. American Water is the largest publicly held water and wastewater utility in the country. We operate in 34 states, 15 of them regulated operations. You can see all the states that we serve up there on the map behind me. We have roughly 6,600 employees that serve close to 14 million people across the country. We're listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol AWK. Drilling down a little further to New Jersey American Water specifically, New Jersey American is the state subsidiary of American Water that all the folks that I introduced work for. We serve 625,000 people across the state in 188 municipalities. That's roughly 1 out of every 3 people in the state of New Jersey get their water supply from New Jersey American. It's about 2.5 million people. We serve approximately 8,600 miles of water main, 45,000 fire hydrants, 170,000 valves. We're responsible for owning, operating, and maintaining that throughout New Jersey. We own, operate, maintain 7 surface water treatment plants. The Canoe Brook one, which is what I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the one that would end up serving South Orange if we're able to get an agreement here to move forward. Behind that surface water treatment plant are 3 reservoirs that will also be serving South Orange. That's where the majority of the water that would ultimately end up in South Orange's system would come from. We also have several wells located back behind the treatment facility that also provide some water to this area, this region. If we drill down a little bit further to our northern operations, that's kind of where we're located here today. You'll see on the map all the towns there in yellow are where we are the regulated water system operator, own, operate, and maintain those systems. It's roughly 25, 30 systems in this general area, with your closest neighbors being West Orange, Millburn, Irvington, Maplewood, and there's a full list up there, and you'll be able to see all the towns that we serve. Tom is directly responsible for all the operations in all these systems that I just mentioned. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom. He's going to give you a little bit of an overview about the system up here in the county, and also specifically to drill in on our water quality here in this region. I know that's a big concern for everybody here in South Orange. We take it very seriously, and Tom's going to give you a little bit more background on it.
Thank you, Nick, and good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Schroba, Senior Director of our Northern Operations, and I want to talk today, really just talk about 3 topics. So if we do enter this agreement, the 3 things that I think would be of interest is, 1, where's your water going to come from? Secondly, what do we do to ensure that the water that you're getting is of high quality, it's reliable? And that is actually the 3rd topic, is just the reliability. It's not only producing the water, it's getting the water to South Orange. What's in between our plant and the connection, the potential connection to South Orange? There's pipe infrastructure, so I want to go over just the reliability of that infrastructure also. So we're going to start with the source. The source, as Nick mentioned, we have our Canoe Brook Water Treatment Plant is located on JFK Parkway, right across from the Short Hills Mall. You probably go by it all the time and don't think too much of it, but that is the primary water source for our system in the northern area. It's a brand new plant. We just invested $75 million to rebuild that plant. It was just commissioned in 2012. And I have on the slide here, it was constructed with state-of-the-art technology. So it took all the best treatment for that water source, and through testing, we determined what is the best treatment for that water. Some of the highlights of that treatment, it's an ozone-based treatment plant. That's a very strong oxidizer of things like iron and manganese and organics like algae. It basically breaks those down into those large particles into small particles and enables us to efficiently take it out of the source water. That plant treats a combination, as Nick had mentioned, about we have 3 reservoirs on site, so it's treating surface water and well water. We have wells on site also, so it's a combination. The total net capacity for that is about 22 million gallons a day. So we have ozone pretreatment, call it, pre-oxidation, breaks it into small particles. The second state-of-the-art technology is we use dissolved air flotation. Fancy name, but it's really just creating small bubbles that adhere to those small particles. It all comes up to the surface, and we take those particles away. Once the water is clarified through this dissolved air flotation, we have granular activated carbon filters for taste and odor. So with the ozone and the filter system we have in there, really it does the job on taste and odor. We have some backup treatment options that when the plant was designed, they were put in place just in case we had taste and odor issues that the primary treatment couldn't take care of. So far, we haven't had to utilize the backups, and I have it up here as powder activated carbon, potassium permanganate. There's things that we can add if we have any issues with the water quality coming out of that plant, but to date we've had none. One of the best ways to treat water is really not to treat it at all, to have a really high quality water source. We do quite a bit to treat our reservoirs, and in years past the reservoir was treated with chemicals, but currently we have a green technology approach that's been working very well for us. We have solar operated, what we call solar bees, that kind of agitate the water and mix the water to make sure we have good quality water in those reservoirs. We also just recently installed some sonar equipment that actually takes care of some of the algae growth. It damages the algae sinks to the bottom, and therefore we don't have to bring it into the plant to actually treat it. So we do a lot of green technology. The picture on the bottom there is some floating solar panels that we have on top of our reservoir that provide power into the power grid. A couple other things about the plant. When we rebuilt it, unfortunately in New Jersey we've had quite our share of bad weather, and we took the opportunity to, when we rebuilt the plant, to move the plant from what was in a floodplain. The old plant was in a floodplain. The new plant is actually built on higher ground. It's no longer in the floodplain, so we don't have that issue of flooding any longer. We have, as far as resiliency, the opportunity to interconnect with other systems. We're connected to Passaic Valley Water. We're also connected to our what we call our Raritan system. So we have redundancy, and if there was an issue at the plant, we're able to receive water from other purveyors. We also have standby generation at the plant, so if we have power outages, we are able to run the plant on these standby generators. So as Nick mentioned, we take water quality very seriously. Both Anthony and Scott, who were introduced, lead a department that continuously monitors our water quality throughout the treatment process to make sure we maintain regulatory compliance. They're doing this through daily water samples. They collect the samples, they analyze them. We use those samples to demonstrate compliance with federal and state safe drinking water standards. We have a very good track record. We have a great track record. New Jersey American meets or betters primary drinking water standards routinely. When I say betters, it's not the best word to use, I guess, but what do I mean? We go above and beyond. We go above and beyond to meet standards. One example would be VOCs, where the requirement for us to sample is only to sample annually. At the point of connection, we actually sample quarterly. We've never had, we have not detected VOCs in our distribution system at all, but just to ensure we're producing quality water, we go above and beyond. In 2013, there were 700 drinking water NOVs, or violations, issued to community drinking water systems in New Jersey. Almost 250 of those community drinking water systems in New Jersey received at least one NOV. We have it in bold up here on the slide because we're very proud of our record. We have not had any NOVs in 2013. In fact, we haven't had an NOV in over a period of 3 years. Currently this year, no NOVs whatsoever. So we have a very good record as far as violations. Not only does New Jersey American have a very good record, well, American Water has a very good record. And this slide just represents that American Water is an award winner. You know, you saw the footprint of the areas we serve across American Water. Well, we've won 150 awards, you know, across American Water for water quality. We have 68 plants that have won the partnership for safe drinking water. We basically exceed the standards. You can see that 20 times better than the industry average for compliance with drinking water quality, and also for reporting and monitoring requirements. One good thing about being part of such a large organization is it's made up of skilled professionals, scientists, engineers. You know, we share knowledge across states. If there are water quality issues, you know, we have the resources and the knowledge, the skills within our company to get the information that we need to make the right decisions. The last thing I wanted to talk about is reliability, because it's, you know, one thing to treat the water, you got to get the water to the customers. How do we ensure that? Well, we invest in our infrastructure. We're proactive in investing in our infrastructure. Hopefully you're aware that you know, our infrastructure is aging across New Jersey, and you know, New Jersey American is proactive in replacing that infrastructure every year. You can see a graph below there of what our capital investment is over the years. To bring it to the North operations, a little more detail, and just talk about North operations. We plan to invest $10 million in water main replacement and rehabilitation this year in just the northern operations. Some examples of that is cleaning and lining that we've done on a 16-inch main, which I'm going to call the spine that's going to carry the water from our plant up to South Orange, this 16-inch main. This has been a multi-year project where we've cleaned and lined that main to make sure we have proper water quality. Some of the streets are listed there. Other projects recently, the Glen Avenue Bridge, which may have caused some traffic pain for some of the residents here. But we did coordinate with the county. We had a situation there where 2 water mains were exposed in the stream. We could not leave it that way. Other water companies chose to leave their mains in that stream, but we decided that it was too much of a risk, and we replaced those mains with a 36-inch main just to make sure we had reliable water going to other municipalities. We have a valve maintenance program, annual maintenance program for large and small valves. Through that, we make sure that we exercise those valves, that if there is a main break, we can shut the main off quickly and minimize the disruption to customers. With that program, we're also identifying large valves or any valves that are broken, and we put those into our capital replacement program. That's part of that $10 million. On the production side, we have about $900,000. It's more or less an annual budget to improve wells, booster stations. We prioritize the projects after performing maintenance. We prioritize what stations need to get a rehabilitation, and we use that $900,000 to do that each year. 2 other points is we do have an electronic maintenance system in place, and it's an asset maintenance system where we're tracking all the maintenance and the repairs on our each asset, so valves, hydrants, wells, boosters. It's all electronic. It's also our communication system from our call center to our workers in the field. That's how they're getting their work, and then vice versa. When they find something, they're sending it back to the office or the call center. One last item to talk about is we do annually flush our fire hydrants. This just ensures water quality in the distribution system. and we're also checking the fire hydrants to make sure they're working at the same time. But we're flushing any sediment that may have built up in the main and ensuring that we have a good residual of chlorine all throughout our system when we're complete. Now I'm going to turn it over to Nick, and he's going to talk about the point of connection.
Okay, very good. So now we're on to the part of the meeting where we're going to talk about the option that New Jersey American Water presents to South Orange. Two things. Number one, we have the capacity available in our system. Tom just talked to you through our Canoe Brook treatment plan and the distribution system that we have in and around South Orange. We have capacity in that system enough to meet the needs of all of South Orange. So it is there, it is surrounding you. However, we can't get it over the threshold. We can bring it to the doorstep, but we need some capital improvements to bring it over the threshold. So there would need to be some capital investment made on our end in order to be able to supply South Orange with all their needs. We would do that, we propose to do that via an extension of water main plus a booster station that would pump water from our system up into the South Orange system, which I'll explain on the next slide. I just want to touch base on one of the things in order for us to make that happen. New Jersey American is going to have to spend a significant amount of capital to do so. In exchange for spending that capital, we would enter into a bulk water sales agreement with South Orange Village to buy water for the long term. That's money that would come out of New Jersey American's pocket to invest in the system, and South Orange would essentially repay it over time via purchasing water from New Jersey American. We will give you quality water, we can assure you that. All of our water that we provide, that we would provide to South Orange, would meet all federal and state water quality standards at the point of interconnection. Once it was delivered into the system, it will be responsibility of South Orange to maintain that water quality throughout the system. And that's why you hear folks talking about the O&M contract or some kind of operations after 1/1/2017 when East Orange goes away. We'll deliver it to the doorstep, we'll get it into the system, and then South Orange's responsibility to carry that throughout via things like Tom discussed that we do in our system. Hydrant flushing, valve maintenance, looping of dead ends, all the things that kind of keep water fresh inside of a water distribution system. There's still stuff that South Orange would have to do, but New Jersey American Water will commit, after we sign a bulk purchase agreement with South Orange, if that's the route we decide to take, we'll commit to getting you water that meets all federal water quality standards. Another thing that we'll do is it'll be a long-term relationship. American Water has about 45 other bulk water sales contracts across New Jersey. I manage all 45 of those water contracts, agreements we call them, because they are exactly that. They're agreements. They're not contracts, they're agreements. There's an agreement between us as the company and the other company or the other town that's going to get the service from us. And we will commit to communication with you as well. I think it's very important that you don't just sign an agreement and then just let it ride for several years. There needs to be a dialogue. There needs to be constant communication. And we've already established that, I think, with South Orange. I think it was mentioned that this has been discussed for many years. I went back and looked through some of my old emails, and I have emails going back to 2009 with Howard based on conversations for this coming 1/1/17 date that everyone's trying to get prepared for. So with that, I ask to go to the next slide. And here is a proposed map of what we preliminarily, what we see as the route in order for New Jersey American Water to supply water to South Orange. You can see the dark red line there. Might be, can we point that out? Black line where it says Canoe Brook there.
Oops. You've got the cursor there?
Yeah, if you can get the cursor going, that'd be great. So the thick black line, you can see the thick black line there to the left a little bit more. That's where we would start. That right there, all the small pipes, the small lines that you see up there on the map are our existing system in Maplewood. We have a 16-inch water main that runs where that dark black line starts. We would essentially tap into that 16-inch water main, come down St. Lawrence Avenue, make a left on Kendall, a right on Audley, and a left on Walton, and go to a proposed booster station, which would be basically at the foot of the Public Works building access road. That's the proposal right now. Once we get to that booster station, we need to take it out of the booster station and come all the way up Lenox Avenue to South Orange Avenue in order to get into the South Orange Reservoir. As it was discussed earlier, everything in the South Orange system operates from that reservoir, so we'd want to make sure we got the water to the point where it's going to be able to operate the system properly. Now, again, I should stress this is very preliminary. This is a concept plan. It still needs to be vetted out. We will certainly be working with South Orange, if this is the route we decide to go, on road opening permits, planning board approval, all the necessary approvals that we'll need to go through, permitting, to get all this done. But right now, from our view of it, this is the way that New Jersey American could provide water supply to meet all of the needs of South Orange. One thing I should stress, too, is I mentioned that we have the water available. The capacity exists in our system in order to meet all of your needs. We're talking not about just the needs of today. We're talking about the needs of the future. We always try to look proactively about what's coming down the road, as I'm sure the governing body here does. And as I mentioned, we're going to have a good working relationship. We like to have a good working relationship with all the towns that we serve, so we know what your needs are, and so we're properly preparing for it, so that we don't run into any instances where water is not available for development that the town deems necessary in the future. So with that, I think that concludes our part of the presentation. We're happy to stay for questions, either for Tom or myself or any of the water quality experts that we have brought along with us.
Great, thank you guys so much. Trustee Levison?
Yeah, just one comment, that this proposal has been discussed with the Department of Environmental Protection, making sure that they have sufficient quantity and guarantees that they could supply the water to the village. And we have gone down, we have made a presentation, and we have the approval from the DEP.
Thank you. So at this point, what we'd like to do is open the meeting up to questions for anybody that's up here or anybody from New Jersey American. If folks want to come up to the microphone here, can I just get a very quick sense of, just a show of hands of how many people have questions? Okay, great. So if you'd like to sort of start a line down here, and then the first person can just come up to the microphone. There's one right at the center of the first row right here. And if you could just state your name and address, please. And just try and keep in mind that there are other people that do have questions, and we do want to get to everyone, so just keep that in mind.
My name is Will McGarren. I'm at 264 Conway Court. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that you all were servicing Maplewood, I guess when Sandy came along and they lost water for a while. What have you put in place to prevent that from happening again, if anything?
The plant, when we lost service to Maplewood, the plant was the older plant. It was built in, back in 1800, say, and it was built in the floodplain. That plant, those buildings that do the treatment are now outside the floodplain. So as you drive down JFK, you're going to see a brand new building. Right. It's at higher ground. So that's what was put into place to prevent that from happening again.
So it was the flooding that caused the problems?
Yes,
okay.
The flooding.
Thank you.
And I can actually add something to that as well. On the booster station that we propose in order to deliver water to South Orange, the tentative plan right now is for 3 1.5 million gallon a day pumps. 3 times 1.5 is 4.5 million gallons. The needs, as you heard earlier, of the South Orange system are somewhere between 2.8 and 3.3 million gallons a day. So we propose building some redundancy into the interconnection that will provide supply to you. We also propose putting a generator at the proposed booster station. So if we do lose power at that booster station, you'll still be able to get supply into the system.
Thank you.
Janine Bauer, 416 Clark Street. I have a couple of VOC questions. Are the wells that are used and then the water mixed with your reservoir, surface water reservoir at your new plant, do those wells have VOC that you remove through GAC or some other technology first before you mix it?
We'll let our water quality answer that question. So if you get the people that actually do the testing.
And if you could come up and use a microphone so folks at home.
Yeah. Maybe just remind everybody who you are.
My name is Scott Brzezinski. I'm the Water Quality Supervisor. In addition to the voluntarily increased monitoring of the point of entry, we have voluntarily sampled our wells as well, and we do not detect those VOCs.
Okay. And will well 17 continue to be used along with the stripper for the low service area?
Yes.
Yes, it will.
So does that mean the part of the town that is supplied by Well 17 will still have the VOC but stripped out by the stripper down at DPW?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So does that mean that there will not be improvement for the low service area in terms of the calcium and minerals and all that calcifying stuff that gets in our appliances?
Well 17 only services not the full low service area. It only provides a portion of the water for the low service area. And essentially what we would be doing is substituting out the East Orange water and the Newark water that's coming from Holland Road and replacing it with the New Jersey American water that would be flowing from the reservoir.
So do you anticipate an improvement in that situation?
New Jersey American, would you discuss, water quality, hardness, things like that?
Sorry, compared to which source?
Well, since I don't know exactly how much water in the in whatever part of the low service area is served by 17 that's being diluted / improved by the Holland Road connection, which is pretty good water, and I don't think that hard. I'm wondering if you guys have a comparison as to if you were to serve it, would it be better? Would it be about the same? Possibly worse?
Can I use publicly available East Orange information? It's on Water Watch.
Sorry, just if you're going to speak, just please use the microphone.
It's publicly available information about East Orange water shows that they have a hardness about 330 parts per million. Our hardness is closer to 160 parts per million, so it's about half.
Okay, but in terms of the dilution or improvement, you don't have a prediction about that?
But that's, Janine, that's going to be very hard to do. Holland Road, the interconnection, would only service portions of the low service area. Well 17 water is introduced in and around Audley Street, so that the Well 17 water is only really realized in that area around the Public Works Yard. It's going to be very hard for anybody to say at any given point in time what the dilution factor might be, assuming the Holland Road interconnection stays open. And it shouldn't be open because it's really only for emergency use.
You're right, okay. And just one other question. You referred a couple times to reservoir, the South Orange Reservoir, not your reservoir. And I think of a reservoir as a surface water body of water, and therefore I was wondering what you meant when you were talking about the reservoir of South Orange. Did you mean that as a groundwater?
I don't believe I said South Orange, but I meant our reservoirs. We have 3 reservoirs on the Canoe Brook site.
Okay.
So it's New Jersey American's reservoirs.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
The South
Thanks
Orange
a lot.
Reservoir, I
Yeah,
believe, correct me if
somebody
I'm wrong.
definitely was referring to
Mr.
South Orange
Valenza
Reservoir a
referred
couple
to
times.
I'll let him speak to
South
it.
Orange Reservoir is actually, it's an in-ground storage tank.
Ah,
We
okay.
refer to it as a reservoir, but
Okay.
it's in-ground, it's not exposed to the atmosphere as a lake or a pond would be.
Okay, I got it, thank you.
It's a
That's what
it's
I
a
was
vault
asking.
that's just above the pumping station on South Orange Avenue.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Howard.
Thank you.
I'm Samuel Fredman. I live at 363 South Ridgewood Road. I've been living here for close to 30 years. My question is about the capital expense that you presented, or the improvements that you have to put in place to deliver the water. What do you expect the cost to be in total? Could you reveal that to us?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're in the preliminary concept stages at this point. It'll be in the millions of dollars. It's a significant capital expenditure. And as I mentioned, in return, it'll be, South Orange will essentially pay for it by purchasing water from us for several years, somewhere in the 20-year range, 20 to 30-year range, minimum on a contract.
Now, there's a report in the newspaper about a 16-inch water main on the Main Street, what is it?
Are you talking about in West Orange? on
No,
Wyoming Avenue, or are you
it's
talking-
between West Orange and
You're talking about
South
the
Orange.
Gregory and Wyoming?
Gregory
connection?
and Wyoming.
Yeah.
There's relining that was to be put in place. Is that one of your projects?
That is, that I had mentioned before the investment that we're making in the infrastructure that would supply water from our plant to the South Orange, but also to the surrounding communities. We do have cleaning and lining it's some mains we clean and line. They're old mains without a liner inside, so they get built up in there. So we're choosing to clean and line, but only if they've, they still have useful life. If they don't have useful life, they've outlived their useful life, then we're replacing.
Well, if I'm trying to recollect correctly, it was about $900,000 of improvements that you were going to put in, according to the newspaper report. Is that correct?
For that project?
For that particular water main on the
I would
Gregory
think that's
Avenue.
Probably correct.
Right.
I'm not sure of the number, but
So
I'd have to look at that.
You can't. What do you think would be the maximum that you could invest with reasonable rates with all these interconnections? I mean, you said it's preliminary. I'm trying to get a sense of how much you're going to put in and what it's going to, how it's going to affect the rates on water. We pay astronomically high rates.
It's not going to affect the rates because the rates are BPU regulated. BPU sets the rates. The amount of money that they're going to spend on this interconnection will not affect the rates.
I can't believe that.
That's the way it works. BPU sets the rates. In years to come, they'll go back with the expenses that they incurred to try and adjust the rates. But those adjustments in rates will affect all of the commodity purchase agreements that they've entered into.
It's also
That's the way the regulatory process works.
It also ends up getting spread out over all the ratepayers.
Well,
not
I can
just
see
our
that,
community.
but on dewatering, we pay an annual fee plus a surcharge for capital improvements. Is there any plan to do that for water? I mean, would South Orange pay for the capital improvements and own those pipes and then have lower rates over the period of the contract?
Well, just to be clear, under the recommended option, the bulk purchase rate is what South Orange will be paying New Jersey American for water. The village will, although in some sense we will have a water utility, we will set a rate to the consumers, which will be enough to cover the cost of what we're paying for the water and the cost of this operation and maintenance contract that we've alluded to. And we will have to necessarily, given the age of our system, incorporate funds for capital improvements, infrastructure improvements. All that having been said, and it's very preliminary at this standpoint, but knowing what we know about the rates and the current BPU regulated bulk purchase rates from Jersey American, with some information from our consultants on what operation and maintenance may cost, and forecasting a certain amount of capital improvements, infrastructure improvements, we do believe that we will be able to deliver the water to the consumers at a lower rate than East Orange Water is currently charging, and most assuredly lower than what we know they will charge come 2017.
Yes, but to make it very clear, the capital improvements that Mr. DeVecchis was talking about, his company making, will not affect the rate that we have to pay for their water.
And if it's if the capital improvements are on South Orange, within the village of South Orange, who owns it?
If we make the capital improvements, we own them. The capital improvement that New Jersey American is making, they will own. They will own the interconnection that Mr. DeVecchis described they were going to construct. They will pay for it. They will own it. The capital improvements that we make internally to this system, South Orange will continue to own.
All right, thank you.
To clarify that, what they're doing is they're putting an infrastructure that brings their water to the point of entry to our system.
Yes, I understand that, and the chart is up there, but we have a yellow line from the booster station, I think at Walton Avenue DPU Works, up to the reservoir, which I assume is on South Orange Avenue. Is that going to be owned by South Orange, that yellow line, or is it going to be owned by New Jersey American?
No, that's going to be owned by New Jersey American. Everything that goes up to the reservoir will be built by New Jersey American and owned by New Jersey American.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Bell, and I'm a resident. I live on Walton Avenue, and I'm also a representative or president of the Farrellfield Park Conservancy. So you probably know why I'm here. And first of all, I want to say I'm glad you put the graphic back up. And second of all, I want to say that I'm excited about being able to switch water. And I'm excited about New Jersey American Water. And I'm hoping that it's going to work. And what I want to ask are just questions about your preliminary plan and your infrastructure plan, is how it's going to affect the residents in my neighborhood, which is Walton Avenue, and which is kind of right in the heart of where you're going to be working. And the two questions I have are, one, if everything is approved, when does construction start? And then how long does it take? And then my other question is regarding the booster station itself. I know that it was, the location was said to be at the foot of the DPW access road. And I just wanted to kind of get, I know it's just preliminary. I just want to find out if there is a kind of a exact location, because what's the residents are concerned about is how that it's far enough away from the road, and because of if there's any noise issue with like generators. I guess generators you have to test the generators once in a while, not all the time, but once in a while. So I guess those are my two questions.
No, I can say, again, I got to stress that it is preliminary, it's conceptual. We don't have drawings, we don't have designs yet. We have walked the site, and as I understand it, I actually wasn't out there for the walk. You were, Steve, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But I believe it's a little bit down the driveway, so from what I understand is that you'd barely even see the structure from the road. That being said, you live in the area, you're going to be impacted by the construction. I will go back and repeat something I said earlier, is that we will certainly be communicating with the village, and you'll be welcome to come to the planning board and have input and have public comment at that time as well. The length of time, the timeline we're going to be on is to meet the 1/1/17 deadline. There's a lot of work that goes up to the fact where we're actually constructing something. There's a lot of permitting, there's planning board approval, all the things that I had previously mentioned. I wouldn't really want to say exactly how long it would take us to build the booster station and the main, but I'd say probably somewhere close to the 1/1/17 date, maybe back up 6 months or so when we actually be seeing construction. How long that takes, I really can't commit to it at this point until we have detailed design concept plans.
It's really not the booster station I'm concerned about. It's more I live on Lenox also, Walton and Lenox. Okay. So I know the residents on Lenox, you're going straight up. I know everybody would want to know how long, the road's going to be dug up. No, that's
fair question. I think the water main is probably the easier part, which is probably good news for you. Would you want to commit to a time, month, 2 months?
I really can't commit to time frame, but I can tell you there'll be a lot of communication about the construction. We could define the timeline better once the planning is done. It's really just a preliminary stick drawing, as you can tell.
But basically, your goal is to have everything in place on January 1st, 2017.
Before it, yeah.
With enough time to test and be sure it's ready before,
Okay.
But we certainly work out the working hours of the crews, traffic control, how traffic would get around the construction. We all, we'll be working with the town to work on a plan.
Okay.
I'm just going to point out now, I live on Lenox Avenue as well, just in case you didn't know that earlier.
Walter actually asked me to ask these questions. So. All right. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, David Schwartzbard. I live down Western Drive South. I thought I heard during the presentation that this American Water already provides like 1 million gallons of emergency capacity. Is that correct?
There's an interconnection that would permit that. And that is an interconnection that's really more a matter currently between East Orange Water and New Jersey American. I know that East Orange Water has taken water from that interconnection in recent times. There's concerns that the water hasn't been paid for, I believe. But certainly there is a physical interconnection between our system and New Jersey American that would allow for that much of a diversion of water.
Okay, but it doesn't come through, obviously, this proposed system. It connects into East Orange at a different point.
It does connect to South Orange, but actually in a different point, which I don't think is on this map.
I can
Tom,
tell
do you want
there's a 1 million gallon a day booster station, pump station in Farrell Field.
It's
We
underground.
supply water to the booster station, pumped up into the South Orange system. I mentioned redundancy before, how we're proposing to build 1.3, 1.5 MGD pumps inside of our proposed booster station. This is one MGD pump in Farrell Field. No redundancy. That's why it's essentially an emergency interconnection, only supposed to be used during emergencies. It effectively has zero capacity because when you build a water utility, you build in redundancy so that if you have a unit out of service, you have a backup.
So where is that building now?
It's underground
It's underground,
in Farrell
there's no
Field.
building.
It's underground, so we don't see that pump.
You don't see it.
Okay.
They're just
All right, and then my other question, I guess indirect, the other gentleman brought up the issue with the rates. My understanding, based off an article in the Star Ledger maybe 2 years ago at this point, is that South Orange has the highest water rates in all of New Jersey. What is the driver of that? Is that East Orange or is that South Orange? Like, why are the water rates so high?
Well, maybe, John, you want to answer that? One of the things you have to be very, very careful of is on what basis are the rates being quoted? Are they being, John,
Sure.
explain that.
It depends a lot on what the base rate is, whether it's 100 cubic feet or whether it's 1,000 gallons. 100 cubic feet is the equivalent of 748 gallons. So, a lot of times you're saying, well, we pay $6 per 100 cubic feet and they pay $7, so we pay less. But really, their $7 is calculated on 1,000 gallons as opposed to the 748 gallons.
I'm going to assume that the Star Ledger, when they put together the graphic and showed the different rates, they were done on a comparable basis.
I can't say, as we sit here today, whether South Orange has the highest rates in the state or not. What I can say is that the rate is entirely driven by East Orange Water Commission, and as we've been saying, that New Jersey American is a BPU-regulated entity. I mean, the price they can offer us is the price that they are allowed to offer us by the state. East Orange Water is not a regulated entity. They make their own price with significantly less regulation.
And I thought South Orange tacked on a rate on top of East Orange rate. It's built through East Orange.
South Orange includes a surcharge that I want to say is 65 cents, which is
historic. It's
just
been there
about
forever.
Yeah, just about 10% of the rate.
And where does that money? What is that money used for?
Barry, do you want to handle that?
The surcharge money that we get goes to, because we do provide some of the billing and accounting function, and it goes to offset some, among other things, costs of exploring options, paying the attorneys. So it's not an enormous amount of money, but we use it it's directed and used for water-related.
Right.
Yeah, South Orange, under the current agreement with East Orange, South Orange is still responsible for some capital improvement for our system. So, East Orange will pay up to a threshold value for capital improvements, and then everything beyond that in a year, South Orange must pay for. So there does have to be some money designated in the South Orange budget for water items.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scott First. I'm a resident of South Orange. I live on Audley Street.
Sorry, if you could just make sure you're right
Sorry,
the mic.
Scott First. I live on Audley Street in South Orange. I have a couple of questions some of which relate to the handout materials that presumably the trustees with the town attorney have prepared, and then some relating to these, presentation pieces which were not made available to us. Let me just ask about the three options, and I apologize, I walked in about 15 minutes late, so you may have actually covered this in the opening, but the second option appears to require that we go through a 3-year process of essentially, hopefully arriving at a contract. But if I understood the timelines, excuse me, the sale, but if I understood the timelines, we really have a decision to make in 2 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's that's kind of a non-option.
Yeah. Well, but it is a non-option.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
For the January 1st, 17 deadline, and
which I assume is the deadline we're all kind
is
of
the deadline,
motivated
but
by.
that doesn't mean that the sale of the system is out of the question down the road.
No, I understand. But in terms of understanding the timeline and when the conceptual framework will develop into something that can be evaluated, we are all tethered to that January 1, 2017 date.
Yeah. And just so that you know, and this is an important thing to remember, if we had started even earlier on the approach to sell the system, if we had reached a point a year or so from the deadline and the referendum results were a no, we wouldn't have enough time to put together an alternative. So as Barry Lewis indicated earlier in this presentation, taking option C gives us the opportunity to put in place a clean water system, but gives us the time to leisurely consider the option to sell.
Okay, I understand that, and I appreciate that. And this is question that may come across as accusation, but it's not intended as such. I'm trying to get a sense of if a dialogue starts using the reference to emails going back to 2009 or thereabouts. This has been something that everyone has known about that's coming along with a contract date that comes to an expiration, has to be renegotiated. Why would we not have started this more informed process a year or two ago, as opposed to being bookended against a hard deadline now? This obviously has nothing to do with the quality of your services, but speaks to the posture that the municipality is now in.
And it's important to note that this isn't something that, came up recently and we said, oh, there's a 3-year deadline, well, we're already inside. Well outside of this 3-year deadline. I work in Steve Rother's office, counsel for South Orange. We have a timeline that breaks down exactly what goes into that 3 years, and we've had that timeline now for several years. There's a couple reasons that we are not within the 3 years at the moment. One is we didn't want to be driven by anger for East Orange and the lack of service we've gotten thus far. The sale of the system is a very permanent solution to what may be a temporary problem. We may very much like a bulk water contract and an operations and maintenance agreement with companies that we find are reputable and we find that are easy to deal with. However, if we had sold the system or made sure we sold the system on 1/1/17, that option would be completely removed from the table. Now, again, had we gone down this path and...
So this is just contractual latitude is what you're essentially...
Contractual latitude, yes, but flexibility for the municipality. This is a municipality asset. I mean, it's like owning a home, only the water system is an asset for the village.
Okay, all right. I think I understand that.
And we had to have water on 1/1/17. Had we not also pursued this option C alongside of it, there was a possibility the referendum failed and we're sort of between a rock and a hard place.
Okay, I understand the answer to that. Thank you for answering that. It kind of segues into the next question, which was a different part of what was discussed so far, which was the geographic constraints on who can submit a bid, right? The 30-mile reference. Other than New Jersey American Water, who else was considered?
We have talked over the years. We've talked to every possible source. This source is the only source that's close enough that has the possibility to feasibly connect, you know, within the parameters of what revenues they can generate from the connection to invest the money. There is no other source that is close enough to do that.
Okay,
We
I understand. So that's fairly concise. So that is, it's not just the geographic locale, it's the geographic locale and who's going to expend the capital to pipe the water in.
Any connection can be made. You can run a 16-inch line from 50 miles away, but the cost to do it couldn't be justified by the amount of water you would sell in South Orange.
The other way to do that is wheeling water, which basically just means if...
I'm sorry, what?
Wheeling water.
Like
which
driving
is where
water, is that what you're saying?
It's the term they use, but it basically means an intermediary, let's say the town next to us, allows us to take water for us through their system. And as you can imagine, the more contiguous communities you do that with, they each want to take a piece of it and add on top of it. That very quickly becomes unattractive from a water rate standpoint.
We did have a conversation with United Water, which is...
Many conversations.
Yeah, which provides water to Bayonne. Bayonne sold their system and did a contract, a sale.
Basically a lease, yeah.
Yeah, a sale of their system. And we had a conversation with them as well.
Is that, I'm sorry, are you mentioning Bayonne because that's the closest example that has, of a municipality that's done something like this? Or?
Yes, yeah, with a company called United Water.
Okay. My last question, thank you for those. That's kind of the process variety of questions. My more local question, as a resident of Audley, leaving room for the fact that as you've described it, this is in a conceptual at best stage. I haven't heard anything, unless it was in the initial 15 minutes, about the actual process of making the connection to the booster, where you're going to go St. Lawrence, Kendall, Audley, Walton, to the pump. On Walton, on Audley, as you may or may not know, both sides of the street have homes on them, and under those homes are streams that are pressure sensitive. Half the street's flooding whenever there's water. And so I think about the construction that presumably would have to occur along those lines, and just the regular disruption, and the proposal to delegate this out away from the municipality to a private source, and I think of what a mess as a potential. So if someone could perhaps speak to what goes into the process of making that connection. I know there was a question in terms of just hard timelines that Mr. Bell asked about, but conceptually how it actually gets done, so the homeowners that are going to live in this, let's say, 5-6 block area are going to know what it's like for the next 3 years to have their streets turned upside down, so to speak.
The Audley Street situation has been looked at very carefully in connection with this. Village engineer is very much, as is my office, we've looked at some of the water problems in some of the backyards of some of your neighbors on Audley Street. Right. And we're very much aware, as is the village engineer, that some pretty serious redesign of Audley is necessary in connection with the work that's going to be done here. And in fact, there was some remedial work that was being suggested by the village engineer to address some of that flooding issue that could be done when the work on Audley Street would be done. And of course, that all would be done in cooperation with New Jersey American. When Audley Street gets opened up to do their work, rest assured that all the other work that would be necessary to remediate some of those problems on Audley Street will be coordinated with New Jersey American.
And that would be a capital expenditure that the municipality would incur, I would assume.
That would be unrelated to the water system, but just in very layman's terms, and I'm a layman, I'm not a water person, but I've been an administrator in a number of towns that undertaken a lot of water main projects. And in a nutshell, what they do is they're going to start at whatever point they're going to start at. They're going to saw cut the asphalt roughly 6 feet wide, pull up the asphalt. They're going to dig a trench roughly 5 feet deep. As they move along, they're going to put in pieces of pipe. One connects to the next. It moves sequentially down a block, so not all this area is going to be disturbed at any one time. So it is not going to be disturbed for years. Any given block, maybe a few weeks. They'll backfill it, compact it, put in initial base course of asphalt to make sure that settles enough, come back compacted. Some of these may be coincided with town paid-for road improvements, where we're going to redo the whole road or make other adjustments. But so in a nutshell, they'll start at the one point and they'll keep moving down the line, and maybe a couple hundred feet a day may be exposed at any given day, and they just move down the line, and then you're back filled and you're back open. So it's not a process that you're going to be years of upheaval on your street. The actual work itself, and I think Mr. DeVecchis referred to it, was there's a lot of permitting and a lot of planning and a lot of that goes into place, but the actual construction timeline is significantly compressed from that, and then any given street or block is only a small portion of that. So the whole, to jump in, you guys are actually in the business, but it's been my experience. So
I think you described it actually very well. It's about 6,000 feet altogether of water main with the suction side and the discharge. The black and the green line on the map. So quite a bit of work, but I think you described it well as what a typical day would look like. A couple hundred feet of main. You only open what you're going to use that day, and then you're closing it up and performing temporary restoration. That's usually 30 days that the temporary restoration is in place. Then the contractor's coming back, probably another crew is coming back and doing final restoration. But all that's discussed with the town, the road opening permit, what the requirements are.
And this concept of going St. Lawrence down to Kendall, to Audley, to Walton, the zigzag, so to speak, to the layperson, why don't we just go, rather than cutting through multiple parts of neighborhoods, why are we doing that rather than taking a straight line? Is there some reason that?
Yes.
I'm not talking about cutting through properties. I'm talking about running, for example, Ridgewood straight down, no offense to Mr. Bell, right down Lenox or something like that.
We need to build a booster station as well, and you can't build a booster station on the corner of Lenox and Ridgewood Road.
Okay.
That would be the straightest line, but all that property is owned privately.
Right. Okay. All right.
And where the intersection is on that black line is where the 16-inch, actually that 16-inch changes to a 12-inch line right at that intersection.
I see.
And so we have to take the pipe from that point.
Okay. My final question, did I understand you correctly when you were saying that the proposal would include to increase by threefold the capacity at the Farrell Field location?
What I mentioned was there's going to be proposed to be three pumps in the interconnection, each able to pump 1.5 million gallons per day.
Mm-hmm.
So 4.5, the total capacity of the thing would be 4.5.
Right.
Assuming one unit is out of service, breaks, maintenance, we still have capacity to deliver 3 million gallons a day to South Orange and meet all the needs.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not being specific.
I think I understood your question.
Is there physical construction of additional, not capacity?
Yes, there is a underground in Farrell Field right now. There's a vault that has the capacity to pump 1 million gallons per day, separate from that vault. So not touching it, but at a separate location near that property, there will be a separate facility that has the three pumps with 4.5 million gallons per day.
Okay, so there's the rub.
So we're not adding to the one. We're making a separate location.
And that would happen in conjunction with all the street work that is also going to be. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Ed Gunnison. I live at 307 Walton Ave. That's directly at Thorndon, therefore directly across the street from the entry to the municipal yard there. So, or more simply, directly across the street from the little green dot here labeled proposed NJAW pump facility. So could you, I know it was mentioned that it would be kind of a little bit away from, not visible from the street or something, but what would the pump facility look like? Is this a small building, or is it something like the pump at the bottom of the hill there, which is a 30-foot high tower that kind of whirs? And
that's actually not a pump. That's an air stripper. That's what cleans up well 17 water.
All right. So what would the
it would not look
pump
like that.
facility look like? Or Is it a building that it's a?
I actually, we have Dana Wright in the audience. He would be the lead designer, so if you can give us just 10 seconds for him to get up here with a microphone, he is the best person to answer these
Under
questions.
pressure, you got 10 seconds, Data.
Again, just introduce yourself and your role.
Of course. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Dana Wright. I'm a senior planning engineer with New Jersey American Water Company. And to answer your question, essentially it would be we were looking at an above-grade structure. Think of it as within your community, I don't know of any existing above-ground pump stations, but almost as the size of a garage, think of that, okay? And basically because, again, we need enough room for it to fit all our equipment in, for access, maintenance, what have you. I think the most important point, though, excuse me, is that we have constructed facilities in park-like settings, around park-like settings, and so we are very wary of the environment in which we work. And also, when we go into residential neighborhoods, we're also very cognizant, if you will, of noise abatement of our facilities, because essentially by what we construct and what we operate, including the testing of, say, periodic testing of generators, we are not looking to increase the background noise coming off that property. So again, the way we've been trying to approach this with the municipal officials is such that we try to keep it, at a nice setback distance, to try to minimize the visible impact from the road. And then, as I said, also with sound attenuation technology available to minimize any noise emitted from the facility when it's operating. So again, that it causes no undue burden on the local residents. If that answers your question.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I just briefly add to that for anyone else who have any concerns. As indicated, the site plan would have to go before the planning board. Anyone within 200 feet would get direct notice of that. Anyone in the neighborhood, it will be fully noticed. The board and certainly New Jersey American has indicated more than a willingness to be sort of good corporate citizens. There's input in the colors, in the mitigate the way it looks, landscape buffering. Again, it's not the height of the stripper. It's likely a single-story structure that we're certainly sensitive and will work on behalf of the residents of the community, and certainly New Jersey American is willing to be as flexible as possible to mitigate any adverse impact on the neighborhood.
My name is Jacqueline Bonpoint, 232 Village Road. When I came here tonight to the meeting, I expected to hear more about the quality of water we will be receiving now versus what we have, from the East Orange and Newark department. And as the gentleman mentioned earlier, we have 3 rates right now. We have the East Orange, the South Orange, and the Newark. I really don't know if the rate is based according to where you live, but this is what we are facing, right now. So if the panel could really let us know what kind of quality of water we are going to receive and we should expect to receive versus the design and the construction. The construction is going to have to be done no matter what. But, I am more concerned about the quality of water because for the past 4 to 5 years, we have been receiving letters stating that the water from East Orange is not good and our health is in danger. So if I could hear the difference that your organization or your company is going to make for the homeowners of South Orange versus what East Orange is offering us right now, I would appreciate it.
We conduct the same testing that East Orange does, and we do not detect the same contaminants they're detecting. So they're not detected in our water supply.
What kind of treatment are you going, how are you going to treat the water?
Yeah, were you here earlier to hear?
No, I'm sorry, I was late. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, there was a lengthy presentation made on how New Jersey American treats its water, a very lengthy presentation.
No, I was there when they started. When they came on the stage, I was here already. But, really, there are different ways, to treat the water, to purify the water. And, if I may ask, what do you use, to treat the water?
Well, and again, the gentleman did speak to it earlier. I pulled the slide back up, and this entire presentation will be on videotape. We are going to put the PowerPoint up on the village website and the recording. I'm not an engineer, but they talked about this.
Could you guys just briefly
repeat? But it's all up
Yeah.
there. If somebody can just quickly hit the bullet points. We don't want to go through the whole process, but.
Yeah, just to, I'll review this slide, but I think the important point is this plant that produces the water is a plant that was just commissioned in 2012. So it has all the state-of-the-art treatment processes in place to produce high-quality water and meet all the federal and state drinking water standards. Scott, is attesting to the sampling that is done on the current treatment process, and we have no detection whatsoever of VOCs, which I know was a problem for your current provider. So the processes and equipment in place is state-of-the-art without getting into detail of the exact processes to meet all federal and state regulations. And our sampling has proven that what was put in place in 2012 has produced very high-quality water, and we've met every standard.
Okay. With all due respect, sir, East Orange had promised us also that whatever water they were delivering was high-quality water. However, it proved that it wasn't so. So, although that I can thank, the township for putting this meeting together, but also I would appreciate it if next time we receive an advance document on the presentation so we can review it and then, come up, with questions that, really relevant to the water treatment. Because right now, we are buying waters and it's very expensive to buy water bottles. And even though what we are buying, we are not sure that they are purified or if they are drinkable. But this is what we are facing. When I first moved into South Orange, we used to drink the water from the faucet. Now we cannot do that. One day I was in the shower, taking, my shower. All of a sudden the water became red. That means it was, to me, with what I know, it was contaminated. Either we can say it's worse, but it would be beneficial to the homeowners to know exactly this is the way the water is being treated. Either it's being electrified, or you're using charcoal, or how it's going, to be done.
Well, again, I think as they indicate in the slide indicates, which again will be on the website, they use an ozone, and they talked about the filtration system. They do have granular activated carbon filters as a backup if necessary. I think another fundamental point is, and I assume when we talk about VOCs, volatile organic chemicals, the one that has been so problematic with East Orange water is essentially a dry cleaning chemical, for lack of anything else, that contaminated their wells. They don't have that coming out of the well, so they don't have to treat for it because the water they're getting out of the well doesn't have it.
That's correct.
So they're way ahead of the game to begin with because they're not starting with contaminated wells.
Right.
So you don't have to treat what you don't have, is what I'm saying.
Okay, a question I have for that gentleman. What do you mean by green technology?
The green technology we have in place is we have 3 reservoirs on the property at Canoe at our Canoe Brook plant. Some water companies actually use a chemical treatment to lessen algae growth within their reservoirs. We actually employ a green technology, which is solar-operated, call them agitators, that just mix the water and just promote a healthy water environment. But also, we have just deployed what we call, it's sonic buoys that are also solar-operated. They emit sound waves. They damage algae growth, and they actually sink to the bottom rather than the algae actually coming into the plant and having to take it out through the plant processes. So, again, the best treatment is no treatment. So if your reservoirs are of high water quality, then it's a more efficient treatment process.
Okay. Would your company know at least about a certain time you can let the homeowners know how much it's going to cost us?
Well, and again, as I alluded to earlier, ultimately, the village is going to be the one that sets the rates for the consumers. A significant component of that rate is going to be the bulk commodity rate that the BPU regulates. We buy this many million gallons at this rate from and commit to it. That'll be rolled into our rate. We're going to go out to bid and get an operator to do the operation, the maintenance, the billing. That's going to have a certain cost that we'll then allocate and project across the total amount of water that we anticipate billing customers, and then we will incorporate also a capital component, recognizing the age of our system. So these gentlemen and their company are not going to be setting a rate for the consumers, so that is information that the village will be providing, and we certainly will as this process plays out. Obviously, until we get the O&M bid, we do know what the BPU rate is currently, can project, I guess, to some degree what it may be 2 years from now, but even that is a little bit of a moving target. But that information will certainly be forthcoming. We are, embarking on this with confidence that your rates aren't going to be higher than we don't think East Orange is right now, and we know most assuredly not what we know East Orange will be in 2017. But we will certainly share that information, and it will be fully developed and fully explained to the public.
After this meeting, how long it will take for the homeowners to hear from the township?
In what regard?
In regard of the solution, what's going to happen, when they're going to start?
As this process unfolds, you'll be hearing from the township a lot and very frequently. As each step of the process goes, as negotiating this bulk water contract that's ultimately approved by the board, and that'll be fully vetted on the website and other social media and outlets. The way we get our information out will be discussed at Board of Trustee meetings, will have to be approved at the Board of Trustee meetings. When we develop, when they go through the process of, if we embark down this, we talked about there will be planning board meetings on the facility they're going to construct and what it's going to look like and where it's going to be, and noise and all those concerns, which are very legitimate concerns. As we proceed and go out to bid for an operation and maintenance contract, that'll all have to be done in public meetings. It will be on the website. So there will be a lot of information communicated to the residents on a whole variety and all these issues that we've talked about as this process unfolds.
Okay, my last question. Since we received the letter from the township advising us not to drink the water, now can we drink the water now?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. There has never been an announcement that said residents shouldn't drink the water. And just so that everyone knows, the standard for contamination by VOCs in New Jersey is the highest anywhere in this region.
The toughest, you should say.
The lowest, excuse me, it's the best. It's the best.
Most stringent.
It's one part per billion of water. If you go to New York, you are likely to drink water that can be as high as 5 parts per billion. The federal standard for VOCs is 5 parts per billion. New Jersey has the lowest at 1 part per billion. and you have never received a letter from either South Orange, East Orange Water Commission, or DEP that the water is not safe to drink. In fact, there was a public meeting that was held by the trustees where DEP came and made a presentation, and in fact, they made a point of drinking the South Orange water, trying to get the point made to South Orange residents that yes, East Orange Water Commission has not been honest in how it reports VOC concentrations in the water, but the water is safe to drink.
And to that point, and just to clarify, that he was referring to I can't speak to all our standards on everything else, but the particular VOC
tetrachloroethylene,
which is the dry cleaning one, and that's the one that has registered in East Orange Water. That's the one where the New Jersey standard is 1 part per billion versus 5 parts per billion in New York State, the federal safe drinking water standard. So the point being that it's not, and ultimately we have been very vigilant in compelling and successful in compelling not only the DEP to get on East Orange Water to increase their testing frequency, and we have independently conducted our own tests now for several years. We post all the results on the website. So we're confident, and again, as Mr. Rother alluded to, we have never indicated to not drink the water. And if and when anything ever came, believe me, you would know, because we would indicate it quite loudly and quite clearly. But that having been said, the concerns remain that we shouldn't have to keep staying on top of them like this, and that's why we're excited to potentially partner with a company that doesn't have this coming out of their wells in the first place.
And Mr. Lewis or Mr. Rother, if maybe you could for one moment speak to the concern raised. It's hard to know exactly what may have happened with, you said your water changed color at some point. That's most likely totally unrelated to any of this, and happens sometimes when the direction of flow in a system is changed. So if an interconnection is opened up in one area and water starts coming in another area, all the sediment that's in the pipes gets pulled up into the water. And those happen in localized areas. Those happen a couple times over the past few years. Those don't generally pose a health concern. We do try and notify residents. Like Mr. Lewis said, if there is an immediate health concern, you'll absolutely hear about it. You'll get tons of phone calls, probably with my voice on it, telling you what's going on, what you need to do. Our police, fire, everybody, all of our neighborhood associations. I mean, there'll be a lot of information put out to the community if there was a health concern, and we had any information about that. In those instances where sometimes sediment does get raised, we do our best to try and notice the people living in that particular area about that, which is again usually not a health concern, but basically, if you clean your clothes with it, it might stain your clothes or things like that. So we have put those notices out. And one of the things I would also just add in here, as I try and do at any opportunity, is that if anybody in this room has not gone to southorange.org/alerts on the website and signed up for the emergency notifications from the village, absolutely do so. If you want to make sure that you do get information if there is a problem, make sure you go to that website, make sure you put your home phone number in, your cell phone number, your email address, and you will get voicemails, text messages, and emails if anything were to go wrong, or we do need to communicate anything to you immediately.
Okay, can I go follow up, to what you just said? First of all, every time you have settlement in the water, there is a good chance that the water you are getting was contaminated. There is a chance that the water was contaminated. That's one. Because you're saying that, even though it's red doesn't mean that it is contaminated. But the letter I received myself was from the East Orange Department, and it wasn't the only one. So far, I think I received 5 from them regarding, the level, from East Orange Department, concerning the level of contamination in the water. And I don't know if you had a chance to read the Essex or the Newark or a newspaper to see what the mayor of East Orange was talking about, about the layoff or the revocation of the commissioner of water. So whenever you have sedimentation, there is a chance that the water could be contaminated. That's one. Second, you are asking people to sign on computer. Remember, we have old people. We have people who don't know how to read and write living in South Orange also. And we have people who do not have a computer. So by telling them to go into the website and get the info. Some people might not have it. But however, if you had this, the township had a way of disseminating the information in writing, then some people will receive it.
Sure. In writing takes too long. If there's an emergency, if there's an emergency, we can't send you a letter in the mail. That takes way, way too long. If there's an emergency, we're going to call. We're going to put out the emails. We're going to put out the text messages. We're going to call every single landline. One of the things that we have access to that you don't need to sign up for, if you have a home phone number, Verizon provides us. The phone companies provide us with a list of every phone number, listed and unlisted phone number inside the village, and so we can put out an automated phone call to every single phone that's active within the town. The best thing to do is to also make sure you sign up, and to also sign up with the cell phone. If you don't have access to a computer, and one of the things that we are actually specifically doing is more outreach to the senior community in South Orange, and we're trying the very best we can to make sure that as many people in town are signed up in some way about this. And so if you're not signed up, or you know people that aren't signed up, you can also talk to me. You can talk to any one of us afterwards. You can call the South Orange Village Hall as well, and speak to anybody over the phone there and give them your information, and that number is 973-378-7715. That's the Village Hall number, and if you tell if you contact administration and you tell them you need to sign up, we can take your information down and we can sign you up. So it's not a perfect system, but nothing is, and we're trying to get as many people signed up as possible. So again, we rely on the neighborhood associations, Neighborhood Watch, people in the community that are in contact with neighborhoods and groups of people. So if you think that there are people like perhaps yourself or people you know that may not be signed up or may feel like they don't get information, please call that number or talk to me or one of us afterwards, and we'll take your information down and we'll enter it into the system, because we really want to make sure that as many people in town are registered as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a quick administrative question for the trustees. The contents of the plan that you have assembled, I assume, as the 2 points for the other trustees on this particular project, is that memorialized somewhere that people can access through the website, or how do we get to see beyond these half dozen bullets? No, I'm assuming over the last however long you've been involved in the process, you have vetted a number of different concepts and information that are forming the framework for your recommendation. I don't know if you've already proposed it preliminarily to the full Board of Trustees already, but wherever a more detailed summary exists, how can we review that beyond these couple of bullets that are today's handout?
It consists of dozens and dozens of emails and memos. I mean, it's a huge file. I know of no place where we have summarized all of between my firm, the administrator, and the 2 trustees who have been on this committee. We have exchanged maybe hundreds of emails, lengthy emails and reports and correspondence with
right. I'm sorry.
New Jersey
Perhaps I'm not being
and that hasn't been synthesized.
I haven't asked for a chronology of everything that's unfolded. I have asked, in arriving at a recommendation on the 3 options that you've memorialized for us in this document, where are the contents that summarize how you've arrived at that, other than the pros and cons or costs or benefits?
That's still any number of documents. I don't know that we have
there is
a
summary.
Well, when you are meeting with the other trustees, if you haven't yet done that, presumably you walk through or engage in some sort of substantive colloquy where people are deciding how it is that we've arrived at this recommendation.
We will when we make our recommendation to the rest of the board.
Oh, so you have so the answer is you haven't done that yet.
We can't do that.
Well, I've certainly done the analysis and the evaluation largely in meetings and discussions that are not memorialized, but I would anticipate in advance of the Board of Trustees meeting, there will be a single document that goes through exactly
yeah, I'm
the
sorry.
analysis.
That's what I'm ultimately trying to arrive at.
Right,
Where
that
in
just hadn't been
that's in the
prepared yet.
future?
Correct.
Is that at the 22nd?
That's what we're shooting for.
That's what we're shooting for, yes.
That's is that a September date, or was that a?
September.
Okay, all right, very good. Thanks so much.
Of this year.
Not that slow.
Good evening. I'm Elise Carter, and I live on Walton Avenue, and I just want to reiterate what Richard Bell had mentioned earlier. I really appreciate the work that you're all doing, and I just want to remind you, those of us in the area of Farrell Field are very sensitive, and I appreciate the fact that Trustee Clark is one of our neighbors. We're very sensitive to the fact that this is a residential neighborhood. We are impacted daily by the noise from the Public Works Department and by the animal shelter that is in that same vicinity. And we do struggle with that, so it sounds like you are going to be real active partners if we end up with this kind of agreement. And I just really encourage more of that kind of dialogue between us and the neighborhood and the trustees in the town. And if we end up partnering with you, I just, it's been, a difficult subject at times, just trying to protect the neighborhood, keeping trees from being cut down. I don't know if anything like that's going to be involved with the construction of this small pumping facility, but we've really had to have a lot of dialogue to just make sure that we don't degrade the park and that area of the neighborhood. So thank you.
I can assure you that we are sensitive to that, and in fact, we've, with Richard, have done walkabouts in that area, and in fact changed the site that we originally had proposed because of the sensitivity to the noise and where it would be located. And I think we've picked a spot. What we need to do is now make sure the infrastructure can handle that site.
And I just really want to thank you, because what I'm hearing from all of you tonight is that we are going to work on this together, that there's going to be a lot of dialogue and back and forth. And that hasn't always been our experience in the past, and so this looks like, a real good way to move forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll just add to Trustee Levison's point, too, that if there's anybody here tonight or anybody watching at home or reading about this that does have a suggestion about more that we could do to communicate about what we're doing. Obviously, in the past, some of these issues have been wrapped up in legal issues, which is sort of complicated, how public and, we could be about it. But we're at a point now, obviously, where we can discuss a lot of what we're prepared to do going forward. So again, if people do have suggestions, hopefully, and this is sounding like we're ending the meeting, and we're certainly not if people have more questions, but if there are other ideas about, things that we can do to help get feedback or communicate about, what the plans are. I think everybody up here and the whole board is, very open to that. And New Jersey American Water has certainly, been a good partner as far as how willing they are to do so also. Thanks. Are there any more questions from anybody? Okay, so that looks like that's it. I'll let anybody up here if they have any sort of closing remarks. Does anybody have anything else to add? Okay.
Just a reminder that the complete video of this will be on the website, and the PowerPoints will be on the website, and there's going to be a whole page dedicated. There's already a number of other documents on there, so certainly encourage everybody to go out there and then let your neighbors know if they didn't see it, to go watch the video and then take advantage of all the information that we'll be putting out there.
Thank you. Yeah, we do have a lot of information on the website. And again, if there's anybody watching this that does have a question, or if you're here and you're walking home and you remember the question, you can obviously email any of us individually on the board. You can also, always email info@southorange.org if you're not sure exactly where to direct your question, and we can definitely make sure to get back to you there. So I just want to not only thank everybody who came here tonight and who have been sort of actively engaged with trying to learn more about this issue and be involved, but also to thank not only all of the Board of Trustees, and especially Trustee Levison and Clark, our counsel's office and our administration, and our water consultant, and everybody from New Jersey American Water. As you can see, there's a lot of time and energy being put into to get us to the best solution here. So I want to make sure to also thank everybody who's up here for all the insight and information, and thank you all again for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.